Well, the White House doubling down on its refusal to negotiate with House Republicans over the debt ceiling. Here's White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre earlier today.
As President Biden has made clear, Congress must deal with the debt limit and must do so without conditions. But congressional Republicans are threatening to hold the nation's full faith and credit, a mandate of the Constitution, hostage to their demands to cut Social Security, to cut Medicare, and to cut Medicaid.
Yahoo Finance's Rick Newman is here to tell us three things to keep in mind about this potential standoff. Rick, it's great to see you. So first, you're saying this is nothing but a political stunt.
We've seen this so many times before, and what Republicans do every single time is they withhold votes to extend the federal borrowing limit as leverage for other political demands they have. And, they're not going to look. Democrats control the Senate, so Republicans are not going to pass any legislation that includes big Democratic priorities. And the big thing they want to cut there that the White House press secretary mentioned really is Medicaid, the health program for the needy. They're not going to get Democrats to agree to that. So what they're going to do is try to use this as a messaging tool so that voters can find out, oh, they really, really want to cut spending. If they really cared that much about the federal deficit and the huge national debt, they would not do things like underfund the IRS for a decade and try to roll back the new funding for the IRS. What the IRS is going to do is collect tax money that people legally owe, which will help narrow the deficit. There are other types of things they would do. Cut defense spending. You're not going to hear them say a word about defense spending. That's one of the biggest categories in the federal budget. So look, all this tells you Republicans are not really serious about fixing deficits or bringing down the national debt. This is just a messaging and a political exercise for them.
You are hearing a bit, though, about some defense cuts, at least from certain portions of the Republican Party. And we saw how much power that small wing of the party has as that debacle in leadership played out. So you say eventually this just gets done when?
It's going to get done at the last minute, and we don't quite know when the last minute is going to be yet. Now, Janet Yellen, the Treasury Secretary, said this coming Thursday is the day when the Treasury will hit the limit. It will no longer be able to borrow to finance the bills that it has to pay. But then there are a lot of things the Treasury can do, basically moving money from one account to another that will buy time. So that could give 3 or 4 months until the Treasury really can't pay all the bills, which might be, analysts at this point are estimating early June. This is really going to become crunch time as we get closer to that date, known as the X date. And that's when markets are going to start to notice. So the Congress has always raised the debt limit before, but it has been very ugly a couple times in the past with some actual harm done. So that's what, markets are actually getting nervous about already.
And Rick, speaking of that harm that has been done in the past, what do you think the real damage could potentially look like from this?
2011 is the baseline for the sort of the worst way this could go. So what happened in 2011, very, very briefly, a big standoff, similar to what we're going to see during the next few months. Congress did not resolve the debt limit extension until literally hours. Down to within one day of when the Treasury Department would be unable to pay bills. And that actually had a pretty serious effect on the stock market at the time. And that's when Standard & Poor's, for the first time ever, downgraded the U.S. credit rating by a notch, and it is still at that lower level today. So just as a baseline, stocks fell by 17% in a month around that showdown, even though Congress did ultimately end up raising the borrowing limit. And it took the stock market, the S&P 500, about 6 months to regain those losses. So this is not just verbiage. This really can affect markets if it gets pretty close. And many analysts are saying they think that is what's going to happen this year.